Imagine you decide you're going to build a house. So you make a trip to Home Depot, right? You walk in and start grabbing things, putting lumber in your cart along with nails, tile, paint, maybe a power drill because, well, it'll save time and that's important, right? Who has time to waste? So you load up your cart with what you think you need based on watching some YouTube videos, Instagram reels, maybe a few Pinterest boards, and some podcasts. Then you get home and you realize you have no floor plan, no blueprint, no idea what you're actually trying to build. This is what most people are doing when they try to overhaul their lifestyle. They jump straight into action without clarity, without a plan, a blueprint, if you will, and without understanding the architecture of their own brain. So in this episode, we're going to take care of that. Welcome to Happy and Healthy with Amy, the brain health podcast for women in midlife who want to not just survive, but actually thrive during the menopause transition and beyond. I'm Amy Lang, master health coach, best-selling author, and daughter of Alzheimer's, and I'm here to help you make this next chapter of your life the best one yet. Well, hi there, Amy here. Thank you so much for joining me today, and welcome back to another episode of Happy and Healthy with Amy. When you try to put habits in place, when you try to create that healthy lifestyle without a plan, it's really like trying to build a house without a blueprint. You end up with random pieces that don't fit together. There's no flow, there's no structure, and there's no support. And that's what happens when people try to improve their brain health, optimize their brain health, or create new habits by patching together podcasts, Instagram tips, and half-read books, right? So they wind up feeling overwhelmed, overloaded, and really they're operating without a clear vision. So they're trying to build consistency on a really shaky foundation. And here's what's missing from that foundation. Not working with the architecture of your own brain. So your brain needs emotional relevance, safety, simplicity, and repetition. If your plan doesn't account for how your brain actually works under stress, change, and fatigue, your habits aren't going to stick. So that's why so many smart, capable women think they're the problem. But they're not, right? The plan is. So today we're going to be talking about not that thinking mistakes, but the doing mistakes when it comes to creating healthy habits. We're talking about things like jumping into action without defining a why, a compelling why, or picking vague or overwhelming goals, right? Trying to change too much too fast, or blaming willpower instead of adjusting your strategy. So with this in mind, I want to start us off by walking you through the Joyful Choices framework. All right, so this is a structure that works with your biology, not against it. And it's rooted in neuroscience, compassion, and clarity. So when I talk about the Joyful Choices framework, I always start from the place of what it is that you want, right? So when we talk about the life you want to create, if we talk about it purely from, let's say, a health perspective, you probably want a healthy body, right? You want a healthy brain, healthy relationships, maybe a healthy bank account, right? So what is it? What are the conditions that we need in order for that to happen? Habits, right? Habits, emotional resilience, things like this. So how do you create that? And this is where the 4 pillars of the Joyful Choices framework come into play, We're talking about love, nourish, trust, and gratitude. So when I talk about love, right, I'm talking about concepts like acceptance, boundaries, and compassion. When I talk about nourish, I'm talking about the things that you need to nourish your brain and body, right? So we're talking about things that are all in the restored protocol. Getting enough sleep, eating nutritious foods, staying hydrated, managing your stress, all of these things that are about fueling your body, right? Giving it the nutrients it needs, being able to recover, okay? Gratitude, I think of in terms of 3 R's: reflection, reframing, and reclaiming. So a few episodes ago, I talked about having a gratitude practice, right? How do you think about failure, right? Is it final or is it an opportunity to learn and grow? So this is all really about being able to feel empowered, reclaiming your power, if you will. Okay. And then the fourth pillar is trust. So when I talk about trust, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while or following me, right, on Instagram, you probably know it as interoception. This is about listening to your body, honoring it, and aligning your actions with what your body is telling you. So I also think of trust in terms of consistency and predictability. So this is about letting your nervous system know that it's safe. And ultimately, when you think about it, when you tell yourself you're going to do something and then you do it, you're also building trust in yourself, right? So now with this in mind, let's talk about making habits stick. And in order to do that, we really want to personalize your plan. This is not a one size fits all. As a matter of fact, when you get a one size fits all plan, chances are it doesn't fit anybody well, right? So there are 5 basic steps. Step 1 is to know your why. And this is based on the pillar love, right? We want your fuel to be from a place of love. So one of the mistakes I see, one of the most common mistakes, is that people jump into action without knowing what their compelling why is. So I'll give you an example here. A client of mine started with the goal of getting better sleep. That's what she came to me for, right? And when I asked her why, she told me, because I want to protect my brain from Alzheimer's, which is fear driven, right? So remember, we want love to be the fuel. We want your why to move your heart, right? Not increase your anxiety levels, all right? Step 2 is to choose the right habit to start with, right? So this is based on the nourish pillar. And you notice I said habit, not habits. So one of the most common mistakes I see people make related to this one is trying to boil the ocean, right? Trying to take on too many new habits at once. Because this actually creates a lot of uncertainty. And I talked about this last time, right? Your brain does not like uncertainty. It's going to hit the brakes. So imagine if you were trying to learn how to juggle and you never juggled before successfully. Would you start with a bowling ball, an axe, and a hammer? And if I added 2 more items, let's just say tennis balls, right? Now you got 5. Would you start with 5? Probably not. You could start though with 1, and you might even want to make it really, really easy, right? So what you want to do is start with one simple, doable change. So when I work with clients who want to focus on eating more nutritious foods, we start with breakfast, right? So in one particular case, we focused on a balanced, blood sugar friendly breakfast with Greek yogurt, which has lots of protein, and berries, along with a little granola. right? So that's an example here of what I mean by one right habit. So simplicity here builds momentum as opposed to stress just kind of shuts everything down. All right, step 3 is to master your triggers. And this is based on gratitude. So there's a lot of insight and then reframing that goes on here. For example, if you believe that you lack discipline, when really you're repeating stress-driven patterns. I'll give you an example here. My client Lisa was binge watching Netflix before she went to bed at night, right? She didn't lack willpower. She was using Netflix as a form of stress release. So we worked together to identify other ways that she could relieve her stress, right? We added a wind down routine before she went to bed. And we started working on practicing self-compassion instead of self-criticism. So step 4 is to take binary action, to define a new binary routine. And this is based on the trust pillar. So too often people make the habit or the goal too vague. So this could be like to eat healthier or to get better sleep, right? Or even prioritizing sleep. What does that mean? Moving more, right? So it's either too vague or maybe subjective. So when you make it binary, you're making it so that you know for sure whether or not you actually did the action. So an example of a binary action would be if, let's say, after you make lunch for the next day, you put it in the fridge and then you stretch for 5 minutes before going to bed. So we want this truly to be a simple yes or no answer. Yes, did I do it? No, I didn't do it. That's what I mean by binary, right? And when we make it simple and straightforward like this, it becomes very easy to repeat. So I talked about this being based on the trust pillar. So trust builds when your brain knows exactly what counts as a win, right? And when you see yourself achieving success, you build confidence, you build belief, and you're in integrity with yourself, which also feels really good. All right, step 5 is to study and refine with a growth mindset, with curiosity, right? So another really common mistake I see is people expecting perfection, like that the day is going to go perfectly when you decide you're going to start a new habit, right? Instead of treating this whole habit formation process as a learning process. So what I want you to do is start noticing on days when you actually do follow through on a particular habit, new habit, you note what worked. And on days when it didn't happen, you also note what happened. And you start anticipating, right? You start anticipating what might happen and have a plan B or plan C or plan D so that you don't get derailed. Right? So every time you do it, we traditionally think of that as being success. I want you to reframe that. So even on days when you didn't do it, but you learned from it, you learned how to anticipate, that's success too. And staying in the game, even when it's messy, is success. And that's how you build consistency, which is the name of the game when it comes to habits. So again, this isn't about being perfect. You are learning. You are experimenting, right? So for a growth mindset, curiosity is a wonderful thing. To be a beginner. And when you're a beginner, you're bound to make mistakes. So by approaching creating new habits this way, you have permission to fail. So Just like a baby when they're learning to walk, right? It's about progress, not perfection, right? It's about being present with your process, even falling in love with the process. So look at the joy on a baby's face when they figure it out. Talk about agency, right? So before you start whatever next habit is that you want to create, I really want you to pause and connect with the foundation. We want to get really clear on your why, your vision. So I don't want you thinking about your to-do list, your ideal weight, right? Those are not compelling whys, okay? When your actions and habits are built on fear, shame, or vague goals, they won't last, right? Your brain is wired to sustain what feels emotionally resonant, meaningful, and safe. And a compelling why gives you direction and resilience, right? So let's say you're trying to improve your sleep. I want you to ask yourself, why do I want to get better sleep? Is it because you wake up tired and groggy? Well, why does that matter? Right? Is it because you can't focus and you're tired all the time? All right. Well, why is that important? Is it because you're starting to forget things and that scares you? And why does that fear matter to you? Right? Is it because you watched your mom decline and you don't want that for your family or for yourself? All right. Why do you care about that? Is it because you want to be the kind of woman who shows up fully for her life, who remembers, right? Who leads by example? And why is that important to you? Is it because you value presence, connection, and being a calm, steady force in your family? So when you get to an answer like this, now you've landed on a values-driven why. Because I want to live from connection and presence. I want to be a steady, loving anchor in my family. So that's a why that can survive a bad night of sleep, or a stressful day, or a missed walk or workout, right? That's a compelling why that you can build identity around. So again, it's not willpower. This is also why when life happens, you'll hear coaches say, remember why you started. All right? So I want you to try the exercise, the 5 whys exercise. You want to go at least 5 whys deep, 5 to 7, so that you get to that heartfelt, values-based why. Okay, what's important to you? Sometimes you need to go 6 or 7 whys deep, all right? And if that exercise doesn't really resonate with you, you can try reflecting on these questions instead. What kind of person are you becoming? What do you value most right now in this season of life? How do you want to feel at the end of your day? And what habits will support that version of you? What habits strain you? So the goal isn't to come up with the right answer. It's to find your answer, right? The one that makes you pause. I want you to be able to drop from your head to your heart. All right? So if you're still struggling with this, all right, there are a few episodes where I focused specifically on figuring out what it is you want. So one is titled, What's Your Compelling Why? Another one is The 5 Keys to Staying Motivated. And one of my favorites, How to Get What You Want, with one of my business mentors, James Wedmore. So if you found this episode helpful, right, please hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the little notification button so you know when a new episode is coming out. And of course, I would love for you to share it with someone else who you think would benefit as well. All right? The algorithm loves when you engage. And I would love for people to be able to find this episode. Okay? So that's it for today. I'm going to wrap things up with a quote by Robert Louis Stevenson. Don't judge each day by the harvest that you reap, but by the seeds that you plant.